Well, welcome to the podcast. Good to be here.
We're back.
We're back.
You're Tanner.
Yeah, a little bit. And today we're going to share some recent reflections from Gary Keller. We'll discuss his ahas, opportunities, and challenges that he saw in 2024.
Okay, who is Gary Keller?
Gary Keller, by way of introduction, Gary Keller is an American entrepreneur and best-selling author. He founded Keller Williams Realty on training and education and later brought his teachings to print. His books include The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which is read by most real estate agents, regardless of their agency, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and his most recent book, The One Thing, which is across platforms and New York bestseller.
And that book's read by, I know so many people have read that book.
So many people have read that book. Yeah, one of the interesting things about that book that he said recently when they were preparing to write the book, there was some discussion, and I don't know if it was discussed at that time or an outcome afterwards. They talked about the book being a book or something being either timely or timeless. And they wanted to create something that was timeless, which you think about that, everybody's trying to do the latest, greatest thing. But if you can step aside and do something that's timeless, more impactful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recommended that to someone recently, and they were like, that I think about that book every single day.
Really?
And I would say that if I could only recommend 5 books to people, that book would make the top 5.
Yeah.
It will affect every area of your life. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the red book, as we call it, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, is like the training manual for actually how to sell real estate. And every single person, when they get into the business, reads it. And if they don't, then they regret not reading it immediately and wish they had read it sooner.
Well, and you can also take that book and separate out the real estate section and apply it to business and life.
100%.
Yeah.
Cool.
He definitely is. Well, for me personally, he has been. He's one of the top, most influential people in my mind, and over the past 20 years, probably he's had a significant impact in my life and direction, for sure. Yeah, it's just amazing to be able to be either participating in information that comes from him, sometimes going to see him, and maybe someday get closer than that.
Yeah. He's like our Steve Jobs.
Yeah, he's our Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's I would say very similar in the way he interacts with the company.
In so many ways.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He is a force.
Yeah.
He's a driver. He's a visionary. Yeah. And a get things done kind of guy.
Right.
Yeah. And a real family man. I mean, he's been very successful. He also sets his limits in the areas where they need to be set, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Yep. So, at the end of each year, Gary comes up with a reflection and ahas, opportunities, challenges that came up during the year. So, there are 13 of them here that we'll strike through, and if we have some more time afterwards, I've got some more Gary Keller reflections to make, so it's Highlight Gary Keller Day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And just for people that don't know what an aha is.
So an aha is there's no, it's not a shortening of a sentence or anything. An aha is aha, now I get it. Aha. So
takeaway.
A takeaway, yeah. Something that you might be at a meeting, and at the end they may recap and say, okay, what are your ahas? What are your takeaways? Yep, very good. So number 1, life is shorter than we think, so don't waste a moment. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. People matter more than we can even imagine. So prioritize your time with those you love and never let anything be more important.
Read that one again.
People matter more than we can even imagine. So prioritize your time with those you love and never let anything be more important. This is, I mean, just the fact that those are the two leading ahas. I'm sure these are a yearly thing for him, but they're included in this 2024 ahas. Just the fact that those are the two lead-ins, just super connecting. What could be more important than, yeah, life is short, and the people matter more than anything else.
Yeah. That the second one is definitely. I mean, the first one you start to feel more and more as you get older.
Yes.
Obviously, the second one is the one I'm most focused on right now. Just with my, you could probably hear my daughter in the background saying "papa" or something. And
It's a sweet sound.
yeah, it is a sweet sound. And Juliet told me to not worry about kid noises in the background. And when I'm in here working, or not here and I'm working, and I'm get home, and she's changed so much in 24 hours or 48 hours, or I barely see her for 2 days, and I'm just like trying to be ruthless with my calendar to make sure I spend time with her, because she'll never be a baby toddler ever again. And I know you guys did that with us, so um, I have talked to people that have regrets around that. Most of my input from other people is, I'm so glad I took time, or I didn't take time here, but you can't make up for it, basically. So don't work now and hope you'll get to spend a lot of time with them later, because they'll be teenagers and they'll be doing their own thing at that point.
Well, I'm sure you've heard me say this before. One of my mentors, Buzz Fitzgerald, when I was, in the start of my career and a young father with young children, he said, you're going to people will make sacrifices in areas of their life, and you have to live with the consequences of those later on. And, some people make the sacrifice for the work. And the family is the one that, basically is put on the back burner, and other people will sacrifice the career for the family.
Right.
And, you can succeed at both. The trajectory could equal very close to the same.
Right. That's something I've been thinking about with, I mean, the fact that we're talking about Gary Keller is perfect right now because of the one thing, and the Red Book. The one thing, is all about 80-20 principle, effectiveness, focus. The Red Book is leads, which is, business opportunities, increasing those. Listings, which is, basically opportunities that you've gone from an unknown opportunity to a known opportunity. And leverage, which is systems, people, capital, whatever forms of leverage you can use to maximize your results based on however many leads and listings or opportunities you have. And what I'm trying to do is focus every day on how can I do what's the least amount of effort I can do that has the maximum result, so that I'm not spinning my wheels or feeling like I have to work 60 hours a week. How can I work 40 hours a week or even 30 and have the same or greater impact? So that not just so I can make, a lot of times people end up doing that and then they're like, okay, and I'll just work 60 hours a week and make double, instead, do that so that I can then peacefully spend time with my family and not be thinking about I should be doing this or whatever, because I wasn't that focused or sharp when I was on.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations for having that thought, because I would say I've always had that in the back of my mind, and I've certainly heard people talk about it a lot, meaning being efficient with your time so that you can, spend your time how you want to. And yet, it's probably been the last 3 to 5 years that I've really said, okay, brakes on. I've got more control here.
Right, right. And different people have different like interpretations of things, and different like natures. Like you're just like, I'm going to work 60 hours a week because that's just who I am. I get that. And some people feel guilty about, being more efficient and then not doing more, like you got to work 40 hours a week. Some people like that's just like a bare minimum. Cool. You know, everyone has a different approach or reason, and no one needs to feel guilty for being efficient working 20 hours a week, and no one needs to feel guilty for, you know, being the kind of person that's like, hey, I just work 50, 60 hours a week. That's just
Right.
who I am.
Right.
If I'm more efficient, I'll just get more done.
Yes. And say this a lot too, you know, it's seasons in life where you're more one or the other.
Right.
When you can capitalize on one philosophy or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. Number 3, getting in and out of the right relationships is a process that takes time. So don't cheat the process or try to speed it up.
Mm.
And my mind immediately goes to getting out of relationships when I hear that, for whatever reason, when really the focus should be equally, if not more, on the relationships that you choose to get into and what those can mean later on.
Totally. Yeah. The flashy new object where you're like, this person's going to change my world for the better. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are exposed to, in our life of real estate, and partly because Keller Williams makes a tremendous amount of opportunities available to us because they are a training company, you know, that's real estate related. So we have to filter through that all the time because the shiny pennies keep coming up. And there are shiny pennies and there are people who are shiny pennies. And it's very easy to be drawn to somebody and, you know, say, oh, wouldn't it be great to work with them? Well, as he's saying, tread lightly
right.
and
Start
slowly.
slow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't work with new
Right.
people. Doesn't mean you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Just one deal or one interaction at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the opposite is true where people will exit your life.
Mm.
And you don't want to do that too quickly
Mm-hmm.
because you might find that you needed that person or they needed you and you were too quick to end the relationship
Mm.
or but that also doesn't mean that you shouldn't see some people out
Right.
of your life or
Yes.
that they might need to see you out
Right.
for a certain reason. Could be
Mm-hmm.
totally benign.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Just different seasons of life.
Be conscious of it.
Right.
Yep. Culture is hard to build, but easy to destroy. So once built, protect it aggressively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys used to always say that like your reputation takes years to build and seconds to ruin.
Mm.
Same thing. That's culture is your reputation,
Yeah.
your company's reputation within itself, or your family's, or
Mm.
your friend group, or your organization's reputation within itself. And this is when I'm like, oh gosh, this is so convicting because I'm like, oh yeah, build a good culture, like be that person, it's encouraging or whatever, and then someone like steps on my toe, and I'm like, it's time for you to die, like you know, like it's 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 easy to talk about and easy to have figured out from a knowledge perspective, but self-control is not when you're thinking about it and when you're planning and strategizing it. It's when someone steps on your toe or you hit a mine or something, and how you handle that. That's where I'm like, oh gosh, like you just can't prepare enough for that.
And that's when the true culture emerges.
Right.
You know, when you're at conflict or in an emergency. You know, you think about if you've ever been involved in an emergency before, you can see how people, you know, either step up, withdraw, run away,
Right. Freeze.
freeze,
Yeah.
or you know, overact.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's when the true self comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary.
Scary. Yeah. Really listening requires commitment to understanding. So find a process that allows you to listen well.
It's like Gary stole this out of my subconscious. This whole list. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yes, that's why I read it and said, aha.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Read it again. Really
I will.
listening.
Really listening requires commitment to understanding. So find a process that allows you to listen well. And while you're thinking, so you hear this often, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason for that.
You're saying you should listen twice as much as you talk. Yeah.
That's the answer.
Yeah. Guilty. Um.
Oh, everybody's
Yeah.
guilty.
Yeah.
Eh,
Listen. Go
We've
ahead.
talked about this before. We'll talk about it 1,000 times, more often or more again and again. That I'm sitting here thinking while you're talking about what I'm going to say next. I have not been able to erase that process.
Yeah.
I've improved the process. I can listen more. And the biggest thing is people know when you're listening from your body cues, your language. Most importantly, it's your response. Because either your response is completely based on you, meaning the person who's now responding, and it's about that responder, or it's about the person that they're listening to and they're
Mm-hmm.
hearing
Right.
what's said.
Yeah.
Hearing is not listening. Listening
Right.
is not hearing.
Yeah. There's two or three. There's a few times too when it gets exponentially harder. When someone's talking about something you're really excited about, you want to jump in there. And then when someone's sharing their pain, and then I have the opposite. I don't want to get in there, and I want to respond in a way that stops the communication as quickly as possible without being rude, which is wrong. Like listening to respond in a different way. Um, and I'm sure I could come up with a few others. That's what they say, like listening to listen versus listening to respond. And man, I am so bad at this. This is probably, if I were to say, number one worst attribute about myself is listening to respond versus just listening. You meet the person who can like just sit there with someone in their pain and is just like ready to like rub their back and be like, tell me more, like, and how did you feel then? And like just these like they're listening to respond to cue more listening time, not listening to respond to tell this person, hey, your pain is painful for me and I don't want to experience it, or like, yeah, totally, this is how I feel about it,
Mm.
if they're excited, whatever it is. And man, I could this would probably be number one area I could grow in. I have got a lot better, I would say, this year at it. I don't know why, but the other thing I was going to say is, um, shoot, I lost that. Never mind. Okay, go
Well,
ahead.
you can think of that and come back to it. You're going to get better at things like this because you're focused on relationships more than you probably ever have been before, and your key relationships are going to become uh, genetically closer. Let's say.
Right.
I mean, you had friends in school, you had friends out of school, and now you have your own family, and listening to them is going to matter more and more.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and now you're picking up Mabel's cues as words start to develop, and in a little while she's going to talk a lot more, and your ability to listen is going to be challenged because there's going to be a lot more coming.
hmm Yeah, it's almost like the challenge of listening being harder has made me better at it. Like if I um like closed your eyes, like you put blinders on and you had to like make your way around your house for a whole day, your other senses would get stronger. It's like my listening has become harder because I have a screaming daughter and my wife is talking to me, and so I like really have to listen. Or like other ways it's been, or there's two people to listen to now, but like one of them like I want to give attention to my daughter so she's not screaming and crying, but if I don't give attention to my wife, like that's more painful. So it's like, okay, like, figuring out like being on, you're way more on in that way. And that's what I was going to say is the other side of this is like, how do you perform when you're like, okay, I'm about to go into a scenario, like I'm about to step into this house and this is the situation and I know what's going on, versus walking in and slap, like all of a sudden the scenario is unfolding before you, your reaction is like
Mm,
so different.
mm,
So if it's like, okay, you know, park the car, I'm about to go inside, Marion is going to be in there, I'm going to listen, I'm not going to respond, here we go, you know? psych yourself up, do a good job.
Lord, grant me the patience
Right.
to do the
Or
right
yeah,
thing.
just like or be present or whatever.
Hmm.
And then the opposite when, whatever for whatever reason you enter a room and you're then getting spoken to not in a particular way, but just you weren't prepared for it. And all of a sudden you're like you were thinking about this other thing and now you're need to switch gears and you're grinding the gears and man, that's like really tough. So there's like the how do you perform when you know you need to perform, and then how do you perform like knee jerk reaction? Someone put some pressure on you. It's like okay, like that's where you really grow in the listening. If you can do it when you are blindsided by it, whatever the thing is, then you can do it when you're prepared to do it.
Yeah, and I think you're at your best when your outside self is so closely aligned with your inside self, so that there's no difference between what you exude outside and what is inside. You understand what I mean?
Expand on that.
So for some, who they are inside is not necessarily what they show on the outside.
Mm,
I'm confident. I'm
patient.
patient. I'm kind. I'm hard. I'm defensive.
Mm,
All different
right.
variations there. Well, yes, to all those. Some are stronger than others.
Yeah.
And when you're happiest with yourself and more comfortable with yourself, that's when you can react to those situations
Right.
the best.
Yeah. It is funny that like the mask thing, like I would much prefer someone seem like grizzly and mean or like a little rough around the edges and then find out they're like a big softie than the opposite, which I'm definitely more guilty of, is like, oh my gosh, they're the nicest person ever. And then you like I said, step on the toe or you catch them off guard or whatever it is, and you experience the darker side of someone and you're like, wow.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
and that's something I don't even know really how to do it, but I've wanted to in the last few years, like more better integrate who I really am with who people see me as, and like almost maybe like show a more dark side or just be more direct or whatever, and say like no or the thing. Um, just being more authentic, like it,
Mm.
but it's a tough thing because you're like, okay, am I controlling my tongue or am I letting it fly?
Right.
Or am I being authentic and saying like, hey, I really don't appreciate whatever it is you're doing, or I don't want to be spoken to that way, or whatever way you kind of more authentically share how
Mm.
you're feeling. That's like a endeavor I've
Mm.
embarked on. You, it's similar to the like bringing people in and out of your life. It's not something you want to do overnight.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yes. Okay. Peace of mind is a true treasure. So seek it and guard it against all challenges. Peace of mind is a true treasure. So seek it and guard it against all challenges.
What's the line? What's the what's our favorite Naval?
Oh, a calm mind, a fit body, and a house full of love. These things you cannot buy, they must be earned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one, calm mind.
Calm mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that goes right back to the whole listening thing and how you react. If you're calm in your mind, that goes to your whole body and your ability to react appropriately. And what's interesting about that is you talk about reaction. So my immediate reaction whenever it's really easy when it's joy. When it's pain or it's emergency, I go to calm immediately. And that's not always the best reaction
Mm.
because that's my reaction. I have to if it's an emergency, maybe it's a little different. If it's a personal emergency, let's say, and something has happened that has tipped somebody, negatively, I can immediately become calm and become the problem solver. And you're very good at doing this, realizing where that person is at I've got to be empathetic. I've got to,
Oh,
work them through it, let them talk.
think I'm good at that?
Well, you're good at recognizing
Yeah.
it. I hear you
Yeah.
when you hear that when you do it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Being true to yourself is the only true path. So know who you are and remind yourself daily. I'll keep repeating these. Being true to yourself is the only true path. So know who you are and remind yourself daily. We were just talking about that. The
Yeah.
more you know your true self, the better you can be. And I like the fact that he says remind yourself daily, because it is something that requires constant revisiting of who am I? Who do I want to be? Who will I be?
Mm. Being true to yourself, there's at least two types of people in the world. One, people that just know who they are, and usually they're like pretty closed off to alternatives. And usually halfway through their life, they're like, "Hey, maybe I'll loosen up a bit, and maybe I'll like spend some money or what." Like they're kind of like deconstructing who they are a little bit. And then there's people who have spent like the first half of their life open to anything, i.e., me, and not really sure who they are. Like maybe other people think they know who they are, but they like kind of don't. And I've really enjoyed watching people who have been a certain way for a long time kind of like let go of things, and it's like really difficult for them because it's because it's made me feel more confident in not feeling so sure of myself.
Mm-hmm.
That like, okay, I don't have to do the like, what if I spent some money, or what if I was open to a new experience, or what if I traveled to a country I wouldn't normally travel to. I am doing the opposite, which is like, who am I and what do I believe and what am I like not willing to do and what am I willing to do. Um so that's been liberating. So if you hear this and you think I know who I am, well then maybe you need to let go a little bit and open yourself up, be more open to new experiences or new perspectives. And if you hear this and you go, I have no idea who I am, then
Another,
go ahead.
another possibility is I don't like who I am,
Yeah.
or I don't like certain parts of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you change that? And that's reminding yourself every day of I am who I am today,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to work on these things today,
Right.
so that tomorrow I can say this is who I am.
Right. Totally. Yeah, that's good.
Um, Never betray others, for trust is the basis of all relationships. So be careful what you promise others, for once done, you're now accountable to live up to it. Never betray others, for trust is the basis of all relationships. So be careful what you promise others, for once done, you're now accountable to live up to it.
I want to know why this is on Gary's list. I want to know the backstory. What did Gary promise, or what did someone promise Gary that they didn't do?
True.
That
There is
like drove
something
him
behind all
crazy.
these.
Yeah, it's
Right?
like every law is a
Mm-hmm.
every procedure in law is like someone there was a lawsuit about. So that and I mean I'm just joking. This is not a fun one to think about.
Well, it isn't, because it's very self-reflecting.
Yeah.
Because even at a young age, you said you do something and you didn't do it, and it may or may not have had an impact. But I, for me, this can come down to I said I'd be there at a certain time, and I'm late.
Mm-hmm.
That's a promise.
Right.
That affects trust.
Right.
And I run things pretty close to the
totally
the edge.
same.
Yeah.
The older I get, the more I do that.
Yeah.
The more I have going on.
Yes. I don't know if I think I've always been this way, and I don't know how it started, but I have always been when I was in the moving business. I had a reputation. They all knew I'd be there, but I'd roll in 2 or 3 minutes ahead of time. It wasn't 15 to 20 minutes ahead of time.
Right.
Maybe it's because I didn't work by the hour for much in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's tough. I think the biggest takeaway for me with this is like being very selective with what you agree to and what you say no to, and especially someone like me which goes with what we just talked about, is being careful about what you say yes to, and just wanting to like make everybody happy, so you say yes, 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 and taking a pause you don't even have to say no. Just saying, let me talk to my family. Let me think about it. Let me like strategize a little bit, see how it fits with what I've got going on, and then get back to you. And then then saying, okay, I'm gonna do this. I've done that a few times recently where I'm like, I can't do that. I don't have time for that opportunity, and they potentially could not pay me enough to do it. And I'm like, I will do it, and I'll do it for free. Like after thinking about it, I had a much different perspective. Whereas normally I would either just say yes or no, and regret saying no or regret saying yes. Um, you think like when you say no, when you say let me think about it, the only reason you would say that is because you're gonna say no. But that's not actually the case. Like I've gone from saying let me think about it and in my mind thinking I was gonna say no to yes, I'm gonna do it and I'm actually gonna do it for free
Mm-hmm.
because this is someone or something worth doing, spending this amount of time and doing it for free.
Mm.
Or it could be the opposite. It could be, thank goodness I didn't say yes to that. I'm sorry, it just doesn't fit with, what I've got going on right now.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a developed trait or if it's an innate trait that people's brains are wired to say yes or they're wired to say no.
Mm,
When asked a question, some people, their immediate response is, I gotta say yes, I gotta say yes. Other people, no,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
not doing that. Why would I do that?
It's got to be
Actually,
innate because if you watched babies, oh my gosh. No.
yeah, that's for sure. I tend to lean towards the yes and have working on
Mm.
that. Yep.
Yeah, that's you could write a whole, I'm sure there are books out there
Well,
about,
Chris Voss, I
yeah, right,
mean, the
totally.
negotiator,
Yeah, never split the difference.
never split the
Yeah,
difference, and he says, how do you get somebody to say no?
right.
And for me, because I'm a typically say yes, I want people to agree with
Mhm.
what I'm putting out
Right.
there.
Right.
I've worked with Tyler,
Yeah.
Jamie's husband, and I've talked with him many times. He said, "Well, how do you get him to say no?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's so easy
It's so easy
once you figure it out,
once you
but
figure it
it's
out.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. You also have to think about, do you want to get people to say, is their saying no a win for you and a loss for them?
Yeah, it can't be that. It
It
has to
can't be that.
be when you these kind of negotiating or sales whatever conversations needs to be, it's not about convincing this person by manipulating them and getting them to say no. It's about figuring out if this is a good match or not. And same thing with relationships. It's like it's not about convincing this person to like me or whatever. It's about, are we a good fit or are we not? I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to make it easy for you to say no so that I can figure out like, hey, are we really a good fit in this scenario that we're playing out? Or is it better if we just don't work together? And I mean, there's some scenarios where you're working with a hostage and a terrorist that you,
Mm.
you do need to manipulate that person. You and me having a conversation about, you know, whether we're going to do this or we're going to do that, that's totally different.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Money is a tool to help you lead your mission and your best life possible. So know who you are and how money helps you fulfill your life. Money is a tool to help you lead your mission and your best life possible. So know who you are and how money helps you fulfill your life.
Kiteboarding gear. Just kidding.
Yes. And are you on a red light or you're running a green
Yeah,
light?
right. Yeah.
And yellow, I would say a yellow. So this is the analogy that we took from Keller Williams. There's times in your financial situation or business where you're in a red light position or a green light position. And red light, no spending.
Yep.
Green light, some spending.
Blow it.
And the yellow light is research.
Yeah. I am always in a yellow light scenario, no matter whether it's green or red. I am always researching something.
Yes. Well, and the whole money issue is a big topic, can be spent hours and hours debating money. And I think the most common thing that many people think about is money is a root of all evil.
Mm.
And it's misquoted because it should be the love of money is the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm.
And you then go, once you've got that fully internalized, then it's money is good for the good that money can do. And if you have $10 to give, or you have $10,000 to give, $100,000 to give, $1,000,000 to give, $100,000,000 to give, those are all very positive things that, you've been blessed with to be able to make those
Mm-hmm.
gains
Mm-hmm.
to help other people or other situations.
Right. I was listening to Leif Babin, who's Jocko Willink's business partner on Echelon Front. He was on a podcast recently, and the guy was asking him. He said, like, "Hey, I'm like starting to have success. Like, what do you think?" Leif is an outspoken Christian, and he was like, "What do you think about, like, you've been very successful. What do you think of like the whole money thing? Like, how do you not get?" He asked him about the quote from the Bible where Jesus says it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And uh, Leif's response was really good. He said, if you come to me for help, you're in a pickle financially, or even you just have an opportunity, you're like, hey, I want to help these people, or I want to start this business, or whatever the situation is. If you come to me and I don't have my finances figured out and I don't have an abundance, I can't help you. All I can do is say, like, hey man, that sounds really cool, good luck, wish I could help. So he said, I want to be in a situation where when someone comes to me with a problem or an opportunity, I'm like, no problem, can write you a check right now, help you with that, or support you in that, or whatever. And, I've heard other people say it, but this was just the most recent iteration that I heard someone say, you can't help someone if, you need help yourself. You can't help someone. Put on your oxygen mask first before helping others, kind of situation. And I thought that was really cool. Just like a super simple, and from one person asking to another, it wasn't like, what is your, philosopher thoughts? Just like, hey man, I can't, if I don't have my stuff together, I can't help anyone. Just keep it simple.
Yep.
About money.
Nice.
It's like you could have $10,000 in the bank, or $1,000 in the bank, and have that situation figured out, or you could have $10 million in the bank. It's not dependent on how much. It's not advice. It's dependent on how much money you have. It's a blanket statement.
Right. Yep. Business is easy. People are hard. So the more you pour into people, the more likely you are to succeed at business. Business is easy. People are hard. So the more you pour into people, the more likely you are to succeed at business.
I feel like that's new for me. That's really good. That might be an aha for me from this podcast.
Yeah.
Because like I'm thinking about all the businesses that I know that are crushing it right now, and they're like so good with their people, their culture, their incentives, they like find the best people, they make whatever happen to get that person there. They're continually pursuing new great people, or continuing to pursue this person that they know, if they worked at the company, would be amazing for the company and for that person. Yeah.
Think of where the world would be if the Egyptians had treated the Israelites differently. Look at all they accomplished with them as slaves. Imagine if they had, and actually they treated them as slaves. They did some care for them. However, if they had really worked more closely together as opposed to a hierarchy, what they could have accomplished. Maybe.
Right. Yeah.
There's a huge difference between those who build a lifestyle, income, business, career versus those who build a best as they can do income, business, career. There's a huge difference between those who build a lifestyle, income, business, career versus those who build a best as they can do income, business, career. So find out who someone is before going into business with them.
That one's kind of lost on me because of the wording.
Okay. So what that means is somebody who has a lifestyle, income, business, or career, meaning this is what I believe it means. their work is totally, their income and work is all built around the lifestyle that they want to have.
Mm-hmm.
And they may overspend their lifestyle. They may underspend their lifestyle. You have to determine what that balance is for them and determine if you want to be in business with them.
Mm.
That's my understanding. Because so find out who someone is before going into business with them.
Got
Because if they're that person that is, constantly overspending, the classic example. I love the old commercial on TV. The guy's riding around on his tractor, mowing his lawn on a sunny day. He's in front of a suburban home, grass clippings flowing out of the lawnmower. He's happy. He's got a pool, and he's smiling, and he says, "I've got all these things, and I'm in debt up to my eyeballs."
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. The facade is only the facade.
Right.
Yeah. We each have our own story to live. So seeing your life as a story helps you see it clearly and allows you to author it bravely and lead a storied life. We each have our own story to live. So seeing your life as a story helps you see it clearly and allows you to author it bravely and lead a storied life.
Mm.
I think that, to me, some people get so caught up in maybe their parents' lives and how they lived, or maybe somebody or something that they get so caught up in that they can't really live their own story. They get so caught up in that.
Mm-hmm. Or you get caught up in like what you have going on. Like, I work at this job or I do this. And you don't think like, hey, if someone was going to publish your obituary right now, or you're going to write an autobiography about you, like, would you be cool with what they said? And that like haunts me.
Mm.
I know some people are like, yeah, I don't care. Like, I love my family. I love my job. Like, I'm like, there's like some, I don't know if it's ego or what,
Mm.
just to be transparent, that, I think about like, okay, if someone wrote my obituary today, would I be cool with all the things I've done? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, for the most part. But if I had 10 more years between now and then, and what I'm planning to do versus what I would like to read at the end of that decade, I think those things are like, there's kind of a gap there between like what I'm planning, conservatively planning to do, and like what I would really love to read at the end of those 10 years. So, good for people that are just love cruising and whatever. I think it is kind of, if you do think of your life as a story and you're the superhero in it, or that kind of thing, that can be really scary
Mm.
and convicting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also dangerous to do too much of that, where you're like, I'm gonna blow up my life because I'm trying to write a good story, But striking a balance somewhere in the
Yes.
middle, for sure.
Yes. Last one is, love is the answer to any question. So life is lived at its highest level when you show up to anything with love and gratitude. Love is the answer to any question. So life is lived at its highest level when you show up to anything with love and gratitude. This is where we drop the mic.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like, don't say anything. Listen.
Yeah. Well, what I am enlightened by, encouraged by, is when, again, you have someone who, I mean, he's one of the most influential people in real estate and across many platforms. And yet it all boils down to this. And he led with life is shorter than we think. And the end is love is the answer to any question.
Mm.
And when you're confronted with something and you have to come up with an answer, is your solution love based or something else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's pretty much that simple.
Yeah.
Is it coming from love and gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
or are you coming from want and hate,
Right.
or vindication,
Or fear.
fear,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
fear,
Or apathy,
mm-hmm.
indifference. Yeah.
Yes, yep. So that's Gary Keller's 13 ahas from 2024 to carry into this year
Really good.
and into life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are really good. I want to like print those out and put those somewhere.
Well, I got a pretty picture of them if you want them.
Oh, awesome. Perfect.
And if anybody else does
Yeah,
too.
maybe we'll link to that article so people can see them and print them off if they want.
And it's in true Gary Keller form. It's 13 things, short, sweet.
That's great.
Yeah. So, thanks, folks, for listening, and you can let us know if you have any other ideas, topics, discussions that you'd like to hear more about.
And we've been getting more feedback, which has been great. People emailing, we send it out via the email. People commenting on YouTube and stuff. So that's nice. It's nice to hear that people are listening and enjoying it. And we will keep doing it until the last person falls off.
Yeah. And more guests on the way. Some exciting things coming up.
Great.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Dad.
All right. Thank you. Love you, guy.
Love you.
Bye.